How do we live in a world where both Pop-Tarts and bowl games are bad? I think Georgia Tech disagrees.
You are Locked On Georgia Tech, your daily podcast on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Locked On Georgia Tech. I am one of your hosts, Caleb Johnson. Not smart enough to get into Georgia Tech, but plenty smart enough to talk about Georgia Tech football and maybe the committee and the playoffs and all those sorts of things for that matter. Covering the Yellow Jackets, taking this daily journey with me is my co-host, Jarvis Davis, who's been covering Atlanta sports for the last 15 years. We want to start off by saying thank you for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast and wherever you go to download them. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today on the show, we're going to get into what does landing Cole Bergeron mean for Georgia Tech? Should Brent Key take his time to find an offensive coordinator? But first, Jarvis, man, I don't know that I ever thought I would start off a show by saying, should the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets want to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl?
I mean, but here we are, right? You have Notre Dame taking that ball and running home and saying, no, we're not going to do it because we didn't get in the college football playoffs. And when you think about that mindset, a playoff or bust situation, like that gets coaches like James Franklin fired. Yeah. A guy who has consistently won 9 or 10 games for you and keeping you in the national conversation. But, you know, I understand people want to bring up, well, his record against ranked teams or top 5 teams and all that stuff. Yeah, that's cool. That's fine. But there are always things that you can lift up, especially when you're talking about a Tech team that is 9-3. And they can win 10 games, double-digit games for the first time since 2014. So, yeah, that's a pretty big doggone deal when you think about it. So, yes, Tech should be going bowling, but it's unfortunate that we're in a space now where people have to ask the question as to whether or not you're going to accept that bowl bid. It's just weird, man. Just weird.
Yeah. Well, Jarvis, it's because we find ourselves in a position where we've now got 2 teams who have said, nah, we're good. We don't want to play in a bowl game, because you had Notre Dame, which is how Georgia Tech ends up playing in this Pop-Tarts Bowl against BYU. And we're going to have some time in these upcoming shows to get into like the breakdown of, you know, what that game is going to look like and the matchups and all those sorts of things. But just in this early stages, Notre Dame says, hey, we're not in the college football playoff. All right, well, then we don't want to play any postseason bowl game. And then you have Baylor on the opposite end of things. They're 5-7. They're a team that shouldn't get asked to a bowl game, but because you've got all these weird situations of trying to find teams to fit all the bowl games that exist, then you end up with a Baylor who says, nah, we're good. We're going to prep for 2026. And you're like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. And I think, Jarvis, the one thing that's really bizarre to me is you have all of these coaches who talk about, it's about the game, you know, it's for the love of the game. And, you know, at the end of the day, man, you just want to find guys who want to go out there and play ball. And then you get the opportunity to play ball and
you don't.
Yeah. You don't want it.
That's the hypocrisy that we live in, right? Because, I mean, I guess we're used to it now because for so long, college football tried to act like it was this sanctified entity and everything is above board, when in actuality behind the scenes cats was getting that NIL bag in hotel rooms. You know what I'm saying?
All about the student athletes.
People leaving black cars, you know, at the Nike store, and you picking it up off behind the wall. And I left it over there behind the wall. Go pick it up and get everything you want. Yeah, that type of stuff. It actually happened. I'm for real. That actually happened. So
Jarvis says, I know.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing, man. So I feel like with everything being out in the open, let's just keep it funky, man. Like, if you want to have a playoff or bust mentality, that means you might lose your job.
Right.
So it will behoove you to make these bowl games matter. Make these bowl games say, hey man, we are right here. Like Coach Key said, man, like they're talking about commitment. Like you can't preach that to your players all the time. And then when something doesn't go your way at the end of the year, you start switching up and doing that. So that's why I say, man, I'll ride with Coach Key all day, every day, because he's consistent. He said, man, hey, man, that's one of the pillars of our program. We're gonna commit. We're gonna commit to, doing the worst or coming to work when we don't want to come to work. Yeah, I said work. Yep, these guys getting paid. So yeah, they coming to work. That's
Yeah.
what it's called. So for me, I think that this means a lot for Tech. There's a lot on the line for this team. Like you said, you 9-3, got a chance to win double-digit games for the first time in a little over a decade. So yeah, go and get ready because hey, it's time. It's time.
I think, yeah, for Georgia Tech to end up in this opportunity, which, there's some conversation about other bowl games, maybe the Gator Bowl or something like that, that the Yellow Jackets would have been in had Notre Dame not said, no, we're not playing in a bowl game. But regardless, you end up in this position. And I think it kind of shows how some programs, and kind of surprisingly so, because I wouldn't have expected this from a Marcus Freeman coach football team to have this mentality of we're too good to go play in a bowl game that's not for the playoff system. Yet I think of, Jarvis, a conversation that just took place a couple of weeks ago when Jason Moore was talking to the media ahead of, I think it was ahead of the game against Pitt. And Moore's talking about, man, like I remember the 3-win seasons, like I remember how ugly this all was. And I remember that first time we got the chance to play in a bowl game and what that meant, for the program. And I think for what Brent Key is building, like this is a part of that. And so maybe there are the programs out there that feel like they're too good. But I do think that for what Georgia Tech is putting together, like the bowl games still very much matter. And because it's also, Jarvis, like this is an opportunity for the seniors who are playing for the very last time, if they want to play. I mean, obviously everyone has the opportunity to not participate if they don't want to, but for a lot of guys, this is their last chance to play with their brothers, and they'll take any opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah, and then you started this out right with the quarterback. Haynes King said he's going to play. Not shocked at all by that notion. So when you talk about legacy classes, right? This could be Brent Key's legacy class. Talk about 10, 15 years from now, Haynes King comes back and say, hey, coach, man, you remember when we did, we ended up winning 10 games and you were able to go on to do whatever, and I think that this senior class and Jason Moore's, the Jordan Vandenbergs of the world, all of those guys are saying to themselves, even John Gilmore, even though he's hurt, he's just saying, man, we established something here. We put this team back on the map with our class. We were able to come in and accomplish something. So I think going up against a team like BYU, another ranked team that, got bounced out of the playoffs by losing to Texas Tech over the weekend, I think that this is a viable opponent. It's a ranked opponent. So, hey, man, you got something to play for. So go ahead and finish this thing the right way as seniors and establish your legacy, because I feel like Key is building something. He's already established the foundation. And I think now it's all about continue to build on that.
Yeah, I think one other part of this game, and like I said, we'll have plenty of time to break it all down. But one thing that fits the Yellow Jackets is they're already the betting underdog in this game. And so, giving the say what?
Not surprised.
Right? Yeah. So it's one of those, give that mentality to Brent Key to have once again for this team. And, I think they will very much have them ready for that opportunity. All right, Jarvis, you go from one decision Brent Key and Ryan Alpert had to make of the bowl game, whether you're playing in it, I suppose, and getting this opportunity. Now Brent Key has to figure out the offensive coordinator. Should he take his time when making this decision? The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Prices include the fees up front, which personally, I love because it means you've got no last second surprises at checkout. No, suddenly this is all, $25, $30 more at checkout. You get alerts for teams and matches that makes it easy to grab tickets the moment they drop instead of missing out on these opportunities. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go Game Time. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Jarvis, some big decisions for Brent Key upcoming, and easily the most difficult of all of those is who is going to be the next offensive coordinator for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. In our last show, we talked about whether that decision could come internally. There are some options there, and we kind of mulled those over. So if you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go back and take a listen to it. But just as far as needing to be a rush or taking his time, what is kind of the outlook that Brent Key should have in this moment?
I definitely don't think he needs to rush to do it. I do think there needs to be a sense of urgency, but with it, because I think that as you continue to move forward, as you continue to get ready for this bowl game and then transition to spring practice, I think there are some things that you need to have in play with your potential starting quarterback, right? Aaron Philo, that's going to be the guy. That's what I'm assuming. That's what everyone else is assuming. Assuming he's going to stick around and be here. So I think that marriage and that relationship needs to be fostered. So if the quicker you get that person in, the quicker you're going to be able to, that person is going to be able to establish a relationship with the guy that's going to be on the center for you in 2026.
Yeah, I think this is one where you don't want to rush the decision because you obviously don't want to make an incorrect call here.
Sure.
But man, guys are getting snagged up left and right. And it's like if you're not out there literally recruiting the guy that you want to bring in, someone else is going to snag him up. And like maybe it's a money thing. And someone feels they need to take the opportunity that's right in front of them versus let me get back to you. Let me circle back to you and we'll talk in the next week or so, whatever it might be. Like, I think this is something that Brent had to have known that Buster Faulkner leaving was highly likely. And so having his select list of guys should have already existed, I would assume, and he even kind of alluded to something similar when he spoke to the media on Sunday, talking about his big time list. How many was it, Jarvis, that he said?
He said 36. I don't believe you, Brent. I don't believe you. I think that out of those 36, Caleb, is probably about 6 or 7 guys that he really would like to have. Because 36 guys, he also said that they have to be the right fit. 36 guys aren't the right fit.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now. Like, you can weed out at least 10 to 15 of those guys right now. And you can start with that 11 or so, 10 or 11 guys and go through those guys and then put some feelers out there. And, of course, start having conversations. But no way 36 guys fit you, because you can make a phone call and eliminate some of those guys at the bottom of that list, I'm sure. Like, hey, man, what you know about this guy? You know, hey, or you just pop in the tape of him calling plays. Now, here's another thing, Caleb. Do you consider first-year play caller?
Right.
Do you consider that? I know my answer is hell no. Because you already had one last year in Blake Gideon. No, you don't want to go through that process because you want to continue to build. You don't want to go backwards when it comes to offensively, right? So you want to bring a guy in that has experience calling plays. So I don't think there are 36 guys that are, one, a fit for your program, and two, have experience calling plays already that would make sense for you.
Jarvis, I remember growing up as a kid, and I would go to church, and there was Mr. Mike that I would see, and Mr. Mike always had a question for me. He'd say, "Caleb, how many girlfriends you got this week?" And Mr. Mike, I got 12 girlfriends this week, and I come in the next week. I got 23. You know, I got 36. And when I saw that when I heard Brent Key talk about having 36 candidates, I thought about that very thing of like, as a kid, I'm saying that to Mr. Mike because I'm trying to impress him. And I got all these girls who are really interested in me. And I was wondering with Coach of like, there's no need to show off of like, I have all these guys who, I have built in my Rolodex kind of thing. I would much rather hear 10 or 6, or something in that number, a reasonable number. Yeah, that you can trim through. We also do know, and so since we're making sure we get this content out to you guys first thing in the morning, later today, Coach is going to be announcing who is going to be the play caller for the Pop-Tarts Bowl game. And so, that could be an indication of a direction he's going as far as play caller, or that just could be a like, hey, we're going to keep Buster around for the bowl game, and then he'll be sent off to Florida, after the fact. It's just like, it feels like there's a little bit up in the air as far as that goes. I would assume that for the Pop-Tarts Bowl game, you're not going to have your offensive coordinator a done deal already, or maybe not.
I will say this though, Caleb. I know Buster has some incentive to call plays for this game.
Right.
There's a certain $1.25 million that he owes if he doesn't call plays in this last game of the season. So yeah, I'll be very interested. To see if he's still on this roster, or hey, John Summerall say, hey man, man, we'll take care of it for you. Don't worry about that, bro. We got you. If they gonna fit the bill for that, hey, go on about your way. But if you're trying to save a little bread, hey, Brent, let me finish what I started.
Right.
See what we can do.
I think it'll be very interesting because I do think if Buster coaches this game, we can all kind of wink. We know what the deal is. But if Buster doesn't, if Buster doesn't, then I'm like, hey man, I need a friend like John Summerall who says 1.2.
Oh man, whatever, man.
That's pocket change. That's the uncle that reaches in his pockets, got that wad of cash, and he just starts, hey, how much do you need? How much? Yeah,
2 words, Gator. Hey, they gonna cut the check.
Right. So that'll be an interesting kind of setting off point of what the Yellow Jackets are doing as far as offensive coordinator. And then, if it's not Buster, if it is Chris Weinke, then as you've spoken about, Jarvis, like maybe this is an opportunity for, for him to coach his way into that role, or it feels like very likely though, like an outside candidate is probably going to be the way that Brent Key goes, just because you think of a week ago when this man was talking about getting his big contract extension, that a big part of this was having the money to pay for staff and pay for players So you would think, hey, now's not the time to pinch pennies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you were willing to match what Buster's gonna get, at Florida. So yeah, I mean, we talked about Hell Cabrera, Ryan Alpert, Brent Key, all of them on the same page about what they're trying to do. We're trying to do whatever we can to win championship, not ACC. Yeah, you should have won the ACC this year, but you're trying to win national championships. And when you start getting to that, when you start having that conversation, that means you got to have the financial backing to get it done, right? That starts the conversation, and then you got to be a good enough coach to be able to accomplish it, right? So, but in order to be in those conversations, you have to have the best roster. I mean, the best roster, sure, and then you have to have the best coaching staff that money can buy. So yeah, this is right in line with what they're trying to do. So I mean, I won't be surprised if they go out and get a high money guy.
Well, we go from one decision that hasn't been made yet to one decision that has been made and is a bit potentially of a head scratcher. What does landing Cole Bergeron mean for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets? The holidays come with two big goals: feeding people and finding gifts they'll actually love. And that actually love part, pretty important. When you want both handled in one move, you go Omaha Steaks. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you can stock up and save in a huge way. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an extra $35 off with code COLLEGE at checkout. Look, I've been a personal recipient from my family of getting some Omaha Steaks, and I've got to tell you, it is one of the best experiences to have that box come to your door and know what you're about to throw on the grill is going to taste great. They've got so many options, from fillets, burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. You can build a box for anyone. Holiday magic is made easy because when you order by 6 o'clock Eastern time, everything ships that same exact day. Save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code COLLEGE. Jarvis, it felt like there was going to be a quarterback decision to be made for the Yellow Jackets. Didn't necessarily realize there would be an additional name thrown into that mix, because we saw over the weekend that Cole Bergeron makes the decision to commit to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, a 4-star quarterback added to this class. And, 4 stars aren't often coming to a program just to ride the pine.
No, it actually makes sense to me, because here's why I feel like. But here's why. Let me start here. Let me tell you why I feel this means a lot. Because you had this quarterback deciding to commit when he knew that the offensive coordinator was leaving. So what does that mean? That means he understands and is committed to what Coach Key, the head coach of his team, is doing, and he believes in the program and what they're trying to accomplish. So I feel like this, when you're in a space where you can add talent and they are willing to come into your program and compete, I don't have no problem with that. Because at the end of the day, Aaron Philo might go on to be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play for Georgia Tech. But there's also a possibility that he won't be that guy. Because we understand guys come in with hype all the time. Guys show promise, and then once they're finally in that seat themselves, and they have to prove that those flashes that you've seen in the as a young player are real, and they're out there and they're the guy. When they step into that seat and they're the guy, it's different. it's a different set of circumstances because you're sitting right there watching and learning and all that stuff, but it's a different ball game. We have to go out there and actually apply it. So I don't blame Coach Key for doing this, and I think that it also speaks to what Coach Key is selling. Not necessarily selling because I feel like he's a pretty authentic cat, but when you have these things line up like the way they did with your OC walking out the door and him still deciding to come here, I feel like that means something for what Brent Key is trying to accomplish. And these 18 and 19, 20 and 21 year olds are understanding that as well, and they're feeling it, and they're being drawn to it.
Yeah, Jarvis, when we were talking about this before the show, you said one specific word to me about a decision like this: relationships. And I feel like a lot of the times people talk about recruiting and it comes down to the dollars and cents, and sure, a lot of it is involved in that, but a lot of the times, more importantly, it is about the relationships that the players have built with these coaches. And I think for Cole, this is a situation where he decommits from Virginia Tech because, hey, James Franklin, now the head coach, and it would appear maybe they were going in a different direction. And so if you're a 4-star quarterback who's looking for that opportunity and you've got maybe better setup, but you don't really know what you're going to walk into versus a Brent Key coach team who maybe has warned you of like, yeah, this is what's going on at the moment with Aaron Philo. There are still Graham Knowles is in the building and, and is having to duck as he walks his 6'7" self through the door frame,
Right.
still an option there. Grady Adamson, like there are other quarterbacks on this roster right now that you're going to have to compete against. However, knowing this situation versus walking into another program who's had some interest in you, but you don't exactly know what you're going to get. You certainly understand why Cole ultimately, picks the Yellow Jackets. And as, has been discussed, is out there, is certainly a possibility of, like with Buster leaving to go to Florida. The moment that it is reported that DJ Lagway, if he decides to hit the transfer portal, Georgia Tech has to know what's coming, which would be Aaron Philo taking his way down to Gainesville. So with that being a realistic possibility, you've got to kind of, have your backup plans. And it seems like the Yellow Jackets and it seems like Brent Key has the backup plan here in place. And it makes you feel good, especially when you look at like the actual prospect himself, which, it's kind of one of those. I'm sure we'll have some time to take a look at all of his skill sets. But I always like seeing big frame, big arm quarterback. And that's essentially what they're getting in Cole Bergeron.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, 6'3", 6'4", about 210, that's that prototype, right?
Right.
You are the prototype, like Andre 3000 said, you know what I'm saying, on Love Below. Like, those are some of the things that you like. This it's an automatic. And when you talk and go back to what you said about the relationships, Chris Winkie was in on him. He stayed, he was persistent. He continued to recruit this man, even though he had already committed to Virginia Tech. And then like you said, when James Franklin got hired, he ends up decommitting. He opens back up his recruitment. Hey, I'm gonna talk to the coach that stayed down, right? So, and when you think about Chris Winkie's background from the whole training piece and training quarterbacks,
Yeah.
you know what you're going to get when you come walk through that door. You're going to get all the attention, all of the technical language that you need to learn, all of the steps and his experience playing quarterback as well at a very high level in college. So you know exactly what you're getting when you get that. And then the authenticity that you're getting from the head coach, it's a win-win for a young man like Cole. So yeah, you get it, you understand, and like you said, I've talked to some guys that work on the college level, and they said that it is nothing like it was when I was coming out, because it was all about relationships and
Right.
the money bags in the hotels and all that stuff. But that couldn't be you couldn't lead the conversation like that. Now that's what people lead with, but you had to lead with like relationships. Are you a man of your word? Like, do I feel like I'm being sold on something, or do I feel like you're a snake or a salesman? I ain't kidding. When I talk to you. So no. So all of those things kind of add up to where we are now, as far as being able to still have some of that old school. Yeah, man. Are you gonna commit to us? Here's the situation that you're walking into. Yeah, you have this quarterback, but we feel like you can do X, Y, Z. And it's up to you as to whether or not you are up for the challenge. So you present it in a way where it's like, all right, you tell them straight up, but there's a possibility in the back of your mind. You gotta think, put two and two together and say, all right, if DJ Lagway hits that portal, is Philo out the door too?
Right.
And if he is, it's an open competition. So that's how you gotta think when you're making a decision as to where you're gonna go to school.
All right. There's gonna we only get 3 segments a day, Jarvis. There is so much more though that we can get into the rest of the week, including Buster Faulkner not being the only coach potentially leaving this program and being someone that Brent Key is going to have to hire. A lot more that we'll get into later in the week, but that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Georgia Tech. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts for free. Follow the show on social media, Locked On Georgia Tech. Follow Jarvis at JarvisD90. I'm at ATL Johnson 18. Thank you for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and Alex Donna break down the most interesting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. For Locked On Georgia Tech, y'all have a good one.